snug up the adjustment nut again. At this point, you'll see that our laser beam is centered well in the eye of the movable sensor. What you can't see is that the stationary sensor is not correct. In order to get the laser beam centered in the stationary eye, we'll use this thumb wheel on top of the movable sensor, which will take the laser beam that this sensor is projecting and it will tip it in and out on the stationary sensor without having to move it. Okay, the movable sensor has the laser aligned in it. We're now looking at the stationary sensor, which is out of alignment. I will now make the adjustment of the thumb screw on the movable sensor, showing you how we can line up the laser in the center of the stationary eye. Okay, I'm now going to measure the axial measurement. You'll want to reference the check sheet provided to see the distance and tolerance based upon the coupler that you have. For this particular coupler, we're going to measure from the back of the rotor to the back side of the hub flange on the generator shaft, and take your measurement. We'll now take our A measurement. You'll use the tape measure supplied in the shaft hog kit. You're going to measure from the center line of the stationary sensor to the center line of the movable sensor.
Okay.
We will now take the B measurement, which is the distance from the movable sensor to the center of the front foot. A simple way to do that is to measure the distance from the front of the generator to the center of the foot, come up to eye level, and just make a mark on the generator. Then you'll take your tape measure, place it on that mark, and eyeball it with the center of the movable sensor and document your distance. We're now ready to enter our A, B, and C measurements into the handheld. The A measurement in this instance was 613 millimeters. You will find that yours will be different every time you do it. To enter that in, I will push the up button on the monitor, and you can see the numbers are beginning to rise. And I will hold the button until I reach 613. Now the A is entered, and I'm ready to enter my B. I will push the right button, which will advance the screen, and you can now see that the handheld is asking for the B measurement. This number will be entered in the same way. In this instance, again, it was 390. You may find yours will be different. I'll hold the up button until it reaches 390. .390 is entered. We're ready to advance to the C. Again, we'll push the forward button. It's asking for C. Your C measurement, as you saw in the procedure, is always 1500 in a GE turbine. That number will never change. Now that we've reached 1500, we have all three measurements entered. We'll advance the screen one more time. And you can see that it's now giving us some dial indicator numbers, the S for stationary and M for movable. At this point, we need to advance the screen one more time, which will zero those numbers out, so that wherever we have our laser adjusted at this point will become 0. If you weren't centered in the eye, that's fine. It is now 0 when you advance it. At this point, we're ready to begin our release for rotation and rotate the shaft to the 3 o'clock position. Okay, we've now rotated the coupler and the lasers around to the 3 o'clock side. We'll now advance the shaft hog one more time by pushing the right arrow button. You'll now see that the screen has changed, giving us our live readings of the angularity, front foot and the back foot readings. You'll document the angularity and the offset as found on your check sheet. After we've documented our horizontal readings in the 3 o'clock position, we'll rotate the shaft and sensors down to 6 o'clock and document our vertical angularity and offset as found. It's a good idea at this point to note the F1 and F2 values because they will tell us how many shims to add or remove when we make the vertical adjustment. After we've made the notations, we'll rotate the shaft and sensors back to the 3 o'clock position and we can begin making adjustments. It's a good idea to do the vertical first because as you're making your horizontal adjustments, you can't change the vertical because the generator's sitting on shims. So we'll add or remove shims as necessary and then make our horizontal adjustments side to side as well as the axial adjustment forward and backwards. You'll have to measure the axial with a tape measure like we did earlier, and your horizontal readings you'll be able to watch those live on the shaft hog. When you've completed all 3 adjustments, your vertical, your horizontal, and your axial, you'll tighten down the feet bolts in the pattern that you've seen in the procedure. And at that point, it's very important to start over and recheck your values. Never quit and call things in tolerance without making a recheck. If you've made any adjustments, you need to back up to 9 o'clock and reset the laser. We're now ready to make our vertical adjustment. You'll loosen up the nuts that are holding the feet down, and you'll either add or remove these C-shaped shims from the feet as necessary. If you have noted your F1 and F2 numbers as we spoke about earlier, positive values when the laser is at 6 o'clock mean that you're going to need to add shims. If your values were negative, means you need to remove. When you're ready, when the bolt is loose and you're ready to add or remove shims, you will place a bottle jack underneath the front of the generator. Try to center it as best you can, and then you'll use a plate on top of the jack to disperse the weight so that you're not jacking it all on the top of that jack head. One adjustment tool that you can use to make your horizontal and axial adjustment at the same time is this push plate. Place it in the pocket on top of the nut. You're then able to place the ratchet in on top and loosen it. Once that's loose, you can snug up either of these bolts. This one you would use to make your horizontal adjustment. You can push it away from you, or if you needed to push the generator back to extend your axial adjustment, you simply move your ratchet to here. Depending on the type of generator you have, this is a Hitachi, we would have to put a little bit of some blocking in there to help push because the bolt isn't long enough. But this would allow you to make your horizontal and axial at the same time, which is very handy. Another tool that's available for making horizontal adjustments is this push plate and bolt. This will not allow you to do axial adjustments very well. In order to put that on, you'll have to take this bolt off. You'll need to remove this nut from the bolt to be able to make a space for this piece. If there's enough thread sticking out above the nut, it is possible to just loosen it a little bit and place this on top. Once the nut's on, I'll put this push plate in, run this bolt through, thread it into the nut that you put on the bolt, and then that will allow you to turn this adjustment nut and push the generator away from you.